Love Podcast Syndicate production.
Each of us runs a different pace in life.
As a millennial or someone coming of age into adulthood, it's just a lot of things to process, and a lot of things that you want can't happen now because a lot of things are
In love, friendships, and our own self-worth. As we embark on these journeys, we hold the hope to learn a little more each day.
why can't I have whatever they have? And oftentimes I find myself comparing my progress, comparing what I have with other people, even like in the slyest way. It seems like it's
As we survive and strive to be stronger.
You are really sure and aware of your being as a person and your truth, your core, your everything. Anything that you put out in the table won't be used against you.
So I'd like to welcome you all to love, growth, and freedom.
the different kinds of love that we could see in this world, and on the idea of how love is crazy and how love has different meanings for all of us.
A podcast that believes in love, inspires growth, and advocates freedom. Let me be your friend, your guide, as we all ride the crazy adventure called life. Powered by Gorilla Podcast Syndicate.
Hey guys, welcome back to Love, Growth, and Freedom with Adrian Duarte. Today is going to be an awesome episode. I'm going to have a special guest that's going to talk to me about our topic for today. And our topic for today is going to be revolving around how we could be selfish and what's the healthy or the acceptable type of selfishness. Because sometimes we all feel guilty when we say no to people. When we say no to other people who expects us to be that person for one of us, or to be that person for them, or whatever, and their expectations of who we are. But it's important that we save ourselves and we work on ourselves first before we try to work on other people's problems. And it's going to be an amazing episode. I recorded it earlier and I can't wait for you to hear it. But before all that, I want to say that I still do have our links for Lazada. If you guys are an avid shopper for online stores right now and you don't want to go out, you can check Lazada to buy your essentials and all the other stuff. So I'll be putting their links down below. And yeah, so Carl has been a good friend of mine. We've been friends since 2020 and we've been learning a lot with each other, and he's a really good friend because he knows how to listen and he really, really enjoys helping me out sort my things or whatever. But yeah, so Carl is one of my good friends and we've been talking, and this is our third episode together. So I hope you guys could enjoy this coming episode. So without further ado, let's hit on our break and then we'll see you back together with Carl. All right. See you there, lovies.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
Hey guys, welcome back to Love, Growth, and Freedom with Adrian Duarte. And today, I'll be joined by none other than Carl Cervantes, a good friend of mine. It's been a while, Carl. How have you been?
I'm good. So I'm taking my master's, and it's been a really hectic sem so far. It's very hard to adjust to the online learning stuff. So I totally understand everyone who's going through this trying time. So I hope we stick with it and give ourselves some time to rest also.
Exactly.
Away from the screen a little bit.
Yeah. So what have you been doing to keep yourself away from the screen? And what have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been making art just to vent some stagnant emotions. I've been making my art. It's on Instagram. It's on my bios on Ginoong Cervantes, which is my main account. I have an art account, Cerebral Epitaph. Cerebral Epitaph is the art account. I post raw and honest emotions, and just it's been good. And I'm really happy because people apparently seem to be relating to it, and they've been telling me how they've been connecting with the emotions that I've been writing about. And it really makes me feel good that I'm able to express the words that they have difficulty saying. So that's really
I'm
I feel good
envious of that, though. I'm envious of that. I've been seeing that too. You've been uploading in Cerebral Epitaph, and you've got like zine like comics about feeling
Yeah.
alone and like all of those stuff. And I resonate with it at a certain point. I'm like, oh goodness, I'm glad that I'm glad that you could express it in that way, because oftentimes I've been feeling like a zombie the past few days and weeks because I just go on with life and be like, okay, we just gotta live, gotta keep going. But yeah, I'm glad you're back here with me today, and I'm excited to talk about the topic of selfishness with you on this episode. So, before we start, I want you to introduce yourself to our new listeners out here because it's been a while since you've been in my podcast. The last time was in June, and it was an episode where you were an ally of the community and you wanted to show us your support. So on this, why don't you introduce yourself again?
Okay, to everyone who, to new listeners and people who haven't seen me before, I'm Carl Cervantes. I'm a master's student. I've worked when I graduated in 2015, I worked in the entertainment industry and with vulnerable communities. And now I'm taking my master's. I like spaghetti. I make art. And I have so many tarot cards. I just ordered another one from Shopee. And
Send
I'm
me
just
one
really happy
over.
about that.
Send me one over.
Oh,
I'd
look,
also want to
I'll show
try.
you. I'll show you. Look, it's so cute. Look at that. Look at
Oh,
that.
you should. Okay, we should do a reading after this episode.
Yeah.
Please
yeah,
read
look at-
me.
Oh, it's so cute.
All
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Okay, well then, thank you for coming again on this episode. So to start it all off, Carl, can you tell me about what is your idea of being selfish? Because this episode's going to be about that feeling of, or talking about that feeling of guilt when you choose yourself. Because in this day and age, we kind of feel guilty whenever we withdraw from people, or as human beings, we're so used to being in relationships with other people and so codependent on other people's how people work and connect. And sometimes being selfish makes us feel guilty. So, what is your definition of selfish, or being selfish, or selfishness as an idea?
Yeah. Uh, Generally, we see selfishness in a negative light. Because as human beings, we are naturally drawn to other people, right? So it's important to, at some point, when we are strong enough in ourselves, to be able to see ourselves in other people. So that really is the goal. In general, the goal really is to see ourselves in other people and care more about others, essentially. But it's difficult to do that if you don't know where you're coming from. If you want to help other people, and if you want to extend yourself to other people and see your neighbor as you see yourself, how could you do that if you can't even see yourself? How can you love your neighbor without loving yourself? Saying that love your neighbor as you love yourself, but you don't love yourself and you don't even know who you are. How can you know yourself? How can you know the other person if you don't know yourself, or see yourself in another person if you don't see yourself first? So I know it might sound a little convoluted and a little too philosophical, but so I'm gonna make it really simple. In order to love another person fully, we must know what it feels like to be loved. And if we have a hard time doing that, if we have a hard time getting it from other people, then we must learn to love ourselves. And that, in that sense, we can be productively selfish, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does actually. I mean, I love the idea of loving yourself if you can't get it from outside, but the whole thing of actually choosing to look at yourself in the light where you can love yourself, because I've been talking about that in the past few episodes, where we as people also psychologically are harsher to ourselves. We are our own worst critic, and we hate ourselves for a lot of things. And if we do harbor that hate inside of us, it somehow projects onto other people, our insecurities, our other stuff that's hidden inside of us. If we can't take care of that, we won't be able to take care of the other people around us or surrounding us, because we're broken and on that end. So do you think it's selfish to choose yourself? Because in this day, like, and there's a lot of times that I would also feel where I would forget myself. I would just go give and be in a supportive environment with other people, try to support them in what they're feeling and how they're doing, and try to help them process things. I feel guilty sometimes when we choose, or when I choose myself, given the situations. For example, if I have a friend who's also heartbroken, and that was a time I was heartbroken, and my friend was heartbroken, and you're like, okay, wait, am I gonna help my friend, or am I gonna help myself up? And I kind of felt guilty if I would choose just myself. So we kind of like, just wallowed in the pity together and be like, okay, let's do this together. Let's be sad together. But you get that feeling when you want to choose yourself and just not do away with any other people around you. So do you think it's selfish to choose yourself at that certain point? And just tell us why, depending on your answer.
Right. Realistically speaking, other people's problems are not really our responsibility. It's important that we are able to help other people, but only after we know that we can do it. We must be able to assess our strengths and know whether we are ready to do anything for anyone else. We must be fair and honest about ourselves if we are capable in doing that. To do that, there's this quote that I read. I forgot exactly how it goes, but it's something like only assist when you're already ahead, something like that.
Okay, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's a good idea. That's a good
Yeah.
philosophy or something. Or something. But yeah, okay, that really makes a lot of sense. Because how can you help someone if you're both in a stump? How could you
Right.
lift each
So
other
it's
up?
it's like right. It's like the blind leading the blind. When you're on the same level of difficulty, how will you be able to lead them forward if you yourself are not in that space? So you must be able to first know how to get there, and in order to be able to know how to help other people. So that's why when when some people give advice and you know that they're on the same level as you are, you're like, did I ask, or sino ka ba? Who are you to give me that advice? Because I know that you are on the same level as me. I know that you're only giving advice that you've never experienced. You're just telling me things that you don't know is true, which is important, I think. To there's another there's another practical quote that I read. It's something like, you must use the wisdom of others in order to become more wise. And if you can't do that, you can read. Well, this isn't the exact quote anymore. I'm just
Yeah.
pulling from the quote. If you can't find a mentor, use a book, read a book, and learn from the lives of people who have gone before you and understand how they've succeeded. In that way, you'll be able to distill the knowledge of the past in order to move into the future. But really, the best teacher is experience. So
Exactly.
that's a kind of language that we are unable to understand. There are languages. Sorry, before I move on to this next point, do you want to add to that? Because I have another point.
Oh no, but I think it's so nice that you told us about that kind of mentality that people have, that if we're on the same level, your advice would actually seem unsolicited. It would be something like, okay, wait, why are you giving me this advice? Because we're on the same level. And relating that to selfishness is, it's true though, because if you are also like in the stump as where everybody else is, and you don't really have the experience that you want to um, have an advice on or give your point of view on, people would not take that as credible because you were never in that situation. You were never in their shoes of experiencing that certain thing. And again, experience teaches you how to deal with all of those things. So I guess people relate and resonate and want people to guide them if they've if they've experienced that already, if they made it through the other side of all those things. And yeah, it's really a good thing. Thank you for making me realize that. Like, okay, I never thought of it that way, because a lot of things a lot of people do, when you hear with your friends and when you talk to your friends, you ask for advices, and sometimes you guys are all at the same level, and
Yeah.
it's not that it's not helpful to each other, but it's kind of like you guys move forward with a few steps only because you guys are also experiencing and learning it at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to your next point on that.
Yeah, but the thing about that is it's also important to have a group of people who are on the same level. It's also important because the benefit there is that you all speak the same language. And when I talk about language, it's not always verbal. It can be non-verbal. It can be an experience that you've all been through. So for example, if you understand the same language of someone who's a college student, if you're a college student, you know the hassle, you know the stress. For example, and this might be a little sensitive, but for example, the same language if you have a loved one who is sick, you know the same language if another person's loved one is also sick. So you know that feeling. You can connect in a visceral way. And that's empathy. That's empathy in trying to understand where the other person is coming from and trying to see how you are connected to another person. There's another quote that I read. I keep
Go for
giving
it.
quotes.
Oh, that's so
because-
much better though. Yes, keep giving us
Yeah,
quotes. Quotable quotes.
Yeah, no,
Go,
I
go, go.
just realized that because I don't know much, and honestly, I haven't really experienced much in my life because I'm only 25, and I haven't really experienced much. So I learn from books and from people who are long dead, and just learning from the lives of other people. And that's really, if you can't experience, if you don't experience the things that other people experience, you can read about it, you can empathize with the people's stories, and you can feel it. You can feel it. It's empathy again. So there's this quote that goes, and it's related to empathy. It's, "I am human, so nothing human is foreign to me." Right? So because I'm human, nothing that is human is different from me. I know what it feels like to be sad. You know what it feels like to be sad.
Exactly.
I know what it feels like to be angry. You know what it feels like to be angry. So when it comes to being selfish, you have to realize that your experiences are also the experiences of other people, and being in tune with your own experiences, knowing what you're going through and being aware of what you're going through is a helpful way to try and understand what other people are going through. So I don't know if you've had this experience before, but have you ever met with someone isn't very emotional, is someone who's kind of stoic in most, like they're
Most
very
of my
aloof, like they don't
friends.
care.
Most
Yeah.
of my friends and I, plus me, I'd probably be that. Yeah.
So you could be a good listener for sure. I believe that you can be a good listener, and that's an important skill. But also there might be some difficulty in giving genuine advice, because there is some disconnect between you and your own feelings. You try to repress it, you try to suppress your own feelings, and you try to forget about it or just ignore it. Some people are like that. They're like, they feel one mood and then they're like, okay, I don't have time for that, I'm gonna not think about that. And in the end, it causes them a lot of trouble, because when you repress something, it's gonna come out eventually in some way, and you're gonna think, where does this come from? No, it's from what you repressed 5 months ago. So if you're unable to deal with your emotions by facing them and being aware of them, how are you able to interact with other people properly? So when we talk about selfishness, in this
You
kind
have
of
to, yeah,
productive
you have to
selfishness,
process your own thoughts and feelings first before you go out into the world and try to reconnect with the
Right.
people that you have to connect with.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way to be em- empathic. That's how you empathize with other people. If you are aware of your own inner self.
So we covered a lot of that in that point, because I was going to ask you a question about when can you be selfish, but you've already covered most of it. It's more of like you put yourself first because when you've depleted most of that you've had, when everything that you need to do, when you feel overwhelmed about your emotions and things are happening to you, it's important that you sit down with your own thoughts and yourself to process these things. Because if you don't and if you can't, you're technically a ticking time bomb of emotions waiting to blow. Like
Exactly.
it's crazy because I've been watching Grey's Anatomy again recently. Again, because I took a break for a while because Grey's Anatomy is a quite a heavy series for me. Her life is so eventful. And then I'm like upset. I was like, okay, bitch, her life is just like a mess. And now she's going through therapy and whatever. She had that part, and she barely even thought of herself in that process. And I'd like to think that that's how everybody is. And I've seen that with my mom. I've seen that with a lot of people who had to be an adult at a certain age where they're not supposed to be adults yet. And I feel for them because they don't get to sit down with their own thoughts and they don't get to feel. They have to like, okay, let's give this another time, another week to actually sit down and process this. And I think that's the acceptable level of selfishness, is when you really just can't deal with your environment anymore, when you can't really deal with the people around you because you haven't dealt with your own emotions. I think that's a really good signal for you to just, okay, wait, let me take a break, let me have my me time, let me have my emotions, my reactions to certain situations. Okay, so we've also covered why is there a need to be selfish once in a while. So what can you tell us, or how can you give us tips on how could we actually sit down and process ourselves, and how could we ask for our moment to be selfish from the people around us? Because a lot of people would misconstrue this as, oh, this guy is selfish, this person is selfish. And a lot of us also can't communicate that we need to be selfish, that we need this time for ourselves first. And it comes off as, oh, this person just wants to blow me off. So how can you, what are your tips and suggestions that could lead us to do and communicate better and process our feelings better? And there you go.
Okay, we're using the word selfish, and I think it's important to define.
Yeah.
I think it's important to define it carefully, because the people say, okay, being selfish is bad, right? There are people who say being selfish is bad because if you just think about yourself, how are you gonna make friends? How are you gonna advance in life in a proper career environment? Or how will you be able to handle your how we are social beings, so how can you be selfish if you have to interact with other people? It's necessary to be selfless and look at other people. But today I think we're talking about selfish as setting boundaries.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? So knowing where we stand as people. So I think first we have to define what is on the spectrum, on the extreme of being negatively selfish. In a way, when people say selfish, I think what they mean is flaky, narcissistic, and just pompous,
and unreliable, really unreliable.
Exactly.
And to add on that, I'm sorry, I just want to, you said you want to carefully define it. I written it down here that selfish is defined as a person, action, or motive lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. That's the dictionary definition of selfish when you search it down on the dictionary. But yeah, it's really good that we have to define it, because we could look at being selfish as a spectrum. So at the other end of spectrum, or the end that we were talking about, pompous, unreliable, flaky. What's the other one?
Narcissistic.
Narcissistic. Okay, so that's at the worst part of being selfish. It means that we do not really have an idea, or we do this because we want to do it without thinking of any other repercussions to it or implications on the people or on the environment around us. Okay.
I have an
Next.
example. Can I give an
Yeah.
example?
Sure, no problem.
Just to make it, just to be able to show instead of just telling what it is. For
Exactly.
example, you told your friend, "Hey, I'm gonna, yeah, let's meet tomorrow night, right? Let's meet tomorrow night." So being selfish, you would immediately flake and you wouldn't be there, and you're gonna say, "Oh, it's self care. I have to take care of myself because I don't feel like it anymore. I'm just gonna stay in, and I don't care about my friend who's waiting for me right there." Being selfish is when someone, and the other extreme, which is self care and actual genuine self care, is when someone asks you, "Hey, do you want to go out tomorrow night?" And you have to weigh and consider and really be aware of how you feel, and knowing that, no, I need some time alone, and I'm going to say no to you, not because I don't care about you, but because I have to care for myself first in order to be able to take care of you also. I care about you. So if I'm
I
going
want to
go
be
out
at my
tomorrow
best.
night,
Yeah.
I
So
want
I
to be at
want
my
to
best.
be
If
at
I
my
go out
best.
tomorrow night and I'm not at my best, so there's a, so that's the difference. There is really, when we say selfish in a negative light, we talk about it as someone who just is really flaky and unreliable, and you can't
Yeah.
trust them. Like they're
Yeah.
always late. They're always
Yeah.
late for some reason. That's
Or like
selfish.
not considering the other person who'd be there earlier than the
Yeah.
expected time, and because
Not,
you're just gonna say,
yeah,
that's just
making other
me.
people wait for you. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, that's just me. That
Making
is bad. That is
excuses. Yeah.
narcissistic. Exactly. But if you can be selfish in a way that is more aware of yourself, like
Because you need
are,
that time off, and
because
because
you
you
need that
need,
time off.
yeah.
Exactly. So you have to know, again, there's awareness of the self, and that might be selfish, but it's not narcissistic, it's not unreliable, it's not flaky, it's just aware of yourself. Because there's this expectation that we have to be social all the time, that we have to always be extravagant and extroverted, and we have this notion that being extroverted is a value, an important value, and people will say, "Oh, wala kang pakikisama. You're such a killjoy. You're such a buzzkill because you feel down." And again, it's not your responsibility. Other people's emotions and feelings are not your responsibility. It's important
Exactly.
to be aware of how you feel in order to be aware of how other people feel as well. And that might sound contradictory, but the truth is that when someone is when someone is feeling a certain way and you can't handle that because you're also feeling a certain way, then you should know that it's not your responsibility.
Because you're also dealing with something yourself. And
Because
how
you're
could you
also
deal
dealing
with
with
that? How could you deal with that other person's ideas and thoughts and feelings if you can't even deal with yourself as of the moment? Like getting yourself together before you try to get somebody else together.
Right.
Yeah, I love this conversation because it's true. I love how we have delineated the idea of like that good kind of selfish and that bad kind of selfish. Because it's obvious though, when you find someone who's just plain selfish with all those qualities of narcissism and whatsoever, you'd realize that they always just make excuses for themselves. They're going to be like, oh, this is me, this is who I am, that's how I am, that's how I just act, and that's, you have to deal with it. Unlike people who choose to be selfish at a certain point because they can't help you out at this moment because they're feeling down, they're also feeling some sort of way that they can't explain to you yet. But at a certain point, they could, and one day they would. You just have to keep patient. And totoo na hindi naman natin, it's not our responsibility to coddle other people if we can't even, if we have things that's going on in our lives. We all have different things
Yeah.
to worry about. All right.
And realistically speaking,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna add to that.
Go for it.
Realistically speaking, we should understand that it's possible that we won't be able to help everyone. We have to understand that. We have to understand that even though we try our best, we won't be able to help everyone, and we won't be able to really please everyone. So we have to let go of the notion that we have to be obligers and just oblige everyone and just, oh, that's what you want, okay, I'm gonna do it for you. That's people pleasing, and that's that's a different kind. There's so many kinds of selfish, when you really look at it in a
Yeah.
different way. When you
It's a
when you
spectrum
oblige everyone,
talaga. Yeah.
yeah, when you try to please everyone, that's a special kind of selfish, because
You're doing
it's
it to
it's
please
you
people.
being
Yeah.
insecure about yourself. It's you being insecure about yourself. You find your value and worth when other people are happy, so you're dependent on other people to find your own happiness. You must find your happiness within yourself, right? And
Exactly.
there's another kind of selfish that really annoys me. It's um it's when people guilt you into doing something that they consider is selfless, like, uh instead of, for example, oh, this is something,
Okay.
when someone borrows money from you, especially if it's a family member, and then they don't pay you, and they just say, oh, we're family member, we're relatives anyway. We're
Yeah.
relatives anyway, so why do I have to pay you? We're relatives. Come on, just forget about it. That's a different kind of selfish. And you have to be yourself. You who lent the money, you have to also be selfish and say, no, you
Yeah.
borrowed that money. So
Exactly.
tell me if you're gonna borrow it. Tell me if you're gonna beg for it. Tell me if you want it as a gift, but make it clear, because it's my money, and you have to have integrity. You know what I mean? So there's that kind. I'm not
There's
saying I'm not
it's
saying na ganun yung family ko. My family
yeah, but
is
yeah.
very
But
careful
I
and
get the
they're very prudent.
idea. I get the idea where some people would guilt you to actually do that. Another example would be, alam mo yung usually if mahal mo talaga ako, you'll give up like let's think about Virgin.
That's
He
another one.
really, yeah, he
Yeah.
really loved me, you'd give it up or you'd stay with me or whatever. We
Right.
Selfishness is actually present in a lot of things that we do, but being aware of it and being able to choose yourself and that kind of selfishness is okay. For me, when you see that you're in a really toxic friendship, a toxic relationship, and you feel like you're just being depleted and people just keep taking it away from you, I think that's the perfect time to actually wait, hold up, let's set up a boundary here. I need to choose myself. I'm sorry, I'm gonna walk away.
Yeah.
That kind of
Exactly.
selfishness is the acceptable level of being, again, what you said was really amazing, and I think people should take this away, take a lot of this from it, from what you said, is that you have to like be aware of yourself. That kind of selfishness where you're aware of your own feelings and emotions and able to process what you need to have for yourself and before choosing that choice of being selfish is an important step in the process of being selfish in that acceptable way.
But, and
Okay.
I have to clarify. I have to clarify for people who might be confused. Some people have black and white thinking and would be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
selfish is bad. It's bad."
exactly.
But
Yeah.
a lot of things that are human are can be used in a good way. Selfishness in this case, for example, there's a bad kind of selfishness and there's a good kind of selfishness. But for example, anger, and people would say, oh no, anger is a capital sin, right? It's bad to be angry. But no, anger drives you to do something important. It's moral indignation. If you see something wrong, you do something about it. That's anger used in a good way. And there are a lot of these things now when people say, oh, selfishness is bad, but not all the time. Selfishness is useful for yourself. Sorry, go
Exactly.
ahead, go ahead.
It's all good. No, it's all good because a lot of the things that we have to consider is that the human brain is really complex, and a lot of things and a lot of experiences in the world makes our thoughts and emotions and ideas ambiguous to a lot of the things that we think is black and white. Unlike in olden days when you just say, "Oh, it's wrong to just have sex." Oh, okay, fine, it's wrong. Whatever you say, it's black and white. That's how they think, in more traditional thinking. But when you look
But
at it, is
I think it's more about.
yeah,
It's
it's
also
a
important to clarify. No, it's not about the action, because some things, and this is personal. This is a personal belief. Some things for me are bad. Some things that are actions that really hurt other people are bad. There are bad things.
And if
There
it's
are
really a
morally
choice,
wrong things.
yeah. Like if you
But
choose to
I
hurt
think what I'm
people.
talking about, yeah, that's really bad. But what I'm talking about is how emotions aren't bad in themselves. Emotions aren't bad in themselves. It's how you use them. So the feeling of being selfish is it's not it's a feeling. It's an experience that you go through. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Does it hurt
Exactly.
other people, or does it in fact even strengthen your will to be with other people? So it's kind of like anger then, it's also like anger. Anger isn't bad by itself. It's an important and a very human and natural drive. But what you do with anger is what's important. Is Are you going to use it to hurt other people? Are you going to use it to fight for the rights of other people? So it's kind of like, it's also like selfishness. Are you going to use it to flake on other people and take it to the extreme and be like, I'm going to cut everyone off because it's self-care. I'm going to cut everyone off. I don't care. You said something that I don't like, so I'm going to forget about you. Or you could just take some time, process what you're going through, and actually use that to better interact with other people. So really, there are different levels to it. And what you do really matters, I think.
That's a good one. Okay, so that was you. This is a fun and insightful episode. I'm also learning at this point. Yay, Carl. Okay, all right. So to move on with the whole topic is, what are your indicators when you need some time for yourself? Like, how can we help other people see? Like, do we have your litmus test, or like that assessment, how to evaluate if we need time to be selfish? Because yeah, again, you said not a lot of people are aware of their emotions and how they feel about a lot of things. So what can you tell people, or what are the indicators that we could all look out for if we need to be selfish, if that's the time you need to be selfish?
Okay, that's a good one, because it's hard to go black and white when we talk about this. But I think a value that's important when we assess whether or not it's important for us to be selfish is if you say what you mean and you mean what you say. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
honesty and integrity is really important. So you must be honest with yourself and know what you need before you say what you need. So you must be honest and know what you need, and before you say what you need. So if you tell someone, okay, let's see each other tomorrow night, you better mean it. You better mean that you're gonna see someone at this time tomorrow night. You're gonna meet them. And if you really have to if you
Postpone
really
it.
have to cancel and or postpone, you have to tell them clearly why and make them understand this is the reason why. It's not because I hate you. It's not because I don't care about you. In fact, telling them is still a strength of honesty and integrity. That really is what's important. So you have to really be careful about what you say and really mean what you say. Uh, that's being that's having that inner strength and being aware of how you feel. That's in a way, it's kind of like selfishness then, because you're aware and you're honest about how you feel. And honesty is okay. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. It's kind of going to a different route.
Yeah.
But I'll stick with
Honesty.
selfishness.
Yeah. But with
Yeah.
what you said is like good, because you have to say what you mean and mean what you say, That's a really, and
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So what
But
else would you want
how
to
do
add
you
on that?
know? Like, right. So your question, how do you know
When it's
when you
time.
have to be selfish? Is you have to be aware of your feelings. Excuse me. You have to be aware of what you're going through and really be in tune with what you're experiencing. Um, it's
Oh,
kind of
I remember a line. Wait,
difficult.
sorry. I remember a
Sorry, go ahead.
line with in Midnight Gospel, where he said this, you have to deal with reality in reality's terms. It kind of like struck me because that's one of the things that you have to deal with. Sometimes what we feel on the inside and what we go through on each and every day is not they do not coincide at a certain point. Sometimes you feel like you feel alone and empty, but in reality you're not. But there's a certain emotion that you have to deal with and to work through. So yeah, I guess those are my indicators. So if you can't think of like a good indicator for everybody in general, maybe you could just think of your own indicator, because again, we have all different indicators. But my indicator would be is that if I feel like I've given enough of myself. For example, if I have 150% of energy, I would love to reserve at least 75 of energy for myself to deal with my own things and my own problems. So if people keep taking and taking until surpassing that percentage or that threshold of acceptable limit of giving, that's where I'd be like, okay, wait, let me retreat because I'm feeling a little depleted now. Let me be selfish on this one.
Right. I think I can answer you. Right.
So,
it was just gestating in my mind, but I think I can answer it properly now. Yeah, I was thinking about this kanina while you were talking, and I realized that you have to ask yourself because anything that is easy is good. This is my belief. Anything that is easy is good, but not everything that is good is easy. That makes sense. So anything that comes easy, okay, it's good. It's good, yes. But not everything that's good comes easy. So you have to really ask yourself, is what I'm doing destructive? Will it push other people away? Or will it help me be a better person, and will it help me be a better part of society, something like that? So will it help me be a good person to others, or will it push other people away? I was thinking kasi of
that's a good thought though.
Yeah, I was thinking of helping around the house. That's a very small example, but I was thinking of helping around the house, and then as a kid, you don't like it. Nobody likes helping around.
And you're selfish about it. You just don't want to do it because you're mad and lazy, and you just don't want to do it.
Right, you're just lazy, and you just don't want to do it. And if it's all about like toxic self-care, you would be like, oh no, I don't want to do it because I have to take care of myself and I don't feel like it. But the question is, are you pushing other people away? Yes, you're pushing other people away because you're living in the same house as other people, and you have to give something in return. You have to
provide.
You have to do.
You put in the same effort that everybody's doing, because everybody's also having their own thing. Everybody also has their own emotional whatever that they have to deal with. So you have to really just that's a good way to do it when you put it in a bigger picture, like the society that we're in and the people around you in your ecosystem of friends and family, is that you guys are actually dealing with all different stuff altogether, and it's all in different compartments. But in this household, in that example, or for example, the bigger picture, society that we all have to be responsible for, we have to do our part. Because if we don't, just because we don't like it, and you say self-care, and being selfish, it defeats the purpose of actually being selfish to help out and be able to put out the same effort as everybody else is putting. So that's a good. Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, take note of that. That is top tier advice. Thank you, Carl. All right, so
yeah,
go for it.
No, I just realized that we're kind of just rambling.
I know
about different tangents and different points.
I know, but
if anyone's listening at this point, I hope you're just listening to us and just not thinking about it too much. Because if someone were thinking about it too much and really expecting to get something out of it, I mean, you can get something out of it. It's just that if you're expecting something, you might be disappointed. It really is just a conversation between people and trying to figure out what it means to be a better person for society, for other people.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing of this podcast, man. It's really just analyzing that part of growth in what we have. even though it's supposed to be a self-help one, it's also important to have these kinds of conversations with people because we don't really know what people or what other people think of the same topic that we have. All right, to end all of this, to end this episode, I would love to ask for your thoughts on, yeah. So you've talked about acceptable kind of selfishness. Just let's end it on a note, on a little more personal note. Is that was there a time that you felt guilty of choosing yourself? Give me a situation where you felt like, okay, wait, I shouldn't have done that, or the time, if not that, a time where you became selfish for the wrong reasons.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there are so many. Now, the thing is, when you ask a question like that, is that I have so many answers, and they're just coming in front of me, and it's hard to really pick out which one is the most important. Um, what's something selfish that I've done recently? I think it's not wanting to help um, take care of certain things in the household. Like
Love to say.
I'm talking specifically about cars, and because we haven't been using the cars very much, and my dad, he wants to. There's so many things to maintain about the cars. He wants me to bring it to this place and that place, and I don't want to do it. Why would I do? It's not mine. It's not my responsibility to do it. But I also realize, I also use the cars. You know, so
Exactly.
I should also probably put in the effort. It's not mine, but I get to use it. So I'm that in that scenario, I'm being selfless. I want to be selfless by helping out because I'm selfish in the sense that I'm also using it. So I might as well help out because I'm using it. So I
Exactly.
feel guilty
For not doing
feeling
it.
like for not
For
doing
not
it.
doing it.
But I
No
did
way.
it. I did it anyway. There were so many moments when I would whine and complain about something that my parents want me to do, but I realized, hey, they're feeding me. Hey, they're paying for my tuition. Hey, they've been supporting me. I have a roof over my head. I don't, I'm not hungry all the time. So how do I repay that? It's kind of, it's a sense of also a sense of integrity in yourself. Um, how how will you preserve yourself if you don't preserve the relationships you have with other people?
Wow.
And also, how do you preserve other people if you don't? How do you
Preserve.
preserve the relationships with other people if you don't preserve yourself as well and know what you need and see that it's all interconnected? People are connected with each other, and it's also important to know what you need and what you're getting, and that I think speaks about privilege, which is another
A whole
topic
different
entirely,
topic. Yeah.
but we're touching upon it. We're touching on it, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but that's a good experience and that's a good example because I've realized just a little thought before we end this is that I I don't know, on a personal note, I have had experiences where I realized my mom was giving me that, like, you would have like a time where you're just gonna sit down like, oh, I've got everything, I've got like food ready on my table, my mom listens to what I want from my food, and I really feel grateful about that. Another example would be an example would be is where I became selfish at this time, and this was one of the worst things I've done. I had a fight with my mom recently because I was feeling upset. I was having my own moment, and I was processing my emotions. I was sitting down, the lazy boy, and I was like, I'm listening to music, drinking, and chilling. And then my mom would come up to me with 10,000 questions. And I was like, why do you keep asking questions? I like, snapped. Like, look at me, I'm having my own alone time here. And she's like, then I won't, what, fine. And I won't talk to you. Okay. Starting next week, I won't be talking to you anymore. And she did it. She was like, and she was rambling up, going up, and she was like, alone time, alone time. I don't even get my alone time. She said that out loud. And I was like, oh, she doesn't. I was like, oh, but what I felt when I felt guilty was the next week that came along. We never talked. She never even looked at me. She never even mentioned my name. She just prepares everything. She still prepares everything, even though when she was mad at me. And when I like asked for something, I was verbally saying what I wanted in the grocery. She still got it. So I was like, okay, now that's bitchy of me. That's really selfish of me because I was dealing with my own problem. I was wanting my own alone time without thinking of, wait, my mom doesn't get it. So might as well, and I don't even help out at the house. I don't even whatever. So now I've been trying to develop this new idea. Okay, wait, she's been doing a lot of things. Let me do something at least in the house. You don't do it. How I don't do it, Kusa. I don't do it on my own. I don't do it on my own free will. But if my mom tells me to do it, if my dad tells me to do it, I'm just like, breathe in, breathe out. Just do it. Don't do anything. Don't do. And yeah, that was one of those moments that I've had to feel guilty about being that selfish because I was lacking the knowledge and consideration of what my parents are also going through. And I do have those moments. You're going to be like, oh, I have so much things that I want that I can't sacrifice many other stuff, but I'm able to, so that I would be able to continue with what I want to do. And I didn't realize that our parents our parents do that for us as well. They have so many things that they want, but since they have us, they had to do it for us instead of just for their own good. So it's a really thick web of things when you choose to be selfish. But what I'd like to end on this note is that the kind of selfishness that we would allow to happen is when we need to take care of ourselves, when we need to find that ground for us to be able to also help other people when we get the chance to. But, to preserve us. That's what you said, to preserve us so that we can preserve the relationship that we have around our lives. So with all that, Carl, would you have any last messages to our listeners out there? And yeah, tell us where we can follow you and what they could expect from all your. You have a new account, right, for your magic. Yeah. So let us know about that. Let us know all about your accounts. And he also does have this poems account called Sancta Somero. I really, really love that account.
Yeah, it's so many. I handle 4 accounts in total, but these are just different facets of me, different aspects of me, and they're all passion projects. And I've been keeping them for a while now, which is kind of impressive because I don't really take care of projects a lot. So sometimes I pick something up and then just drop it. Sometimes I leave things hanging, and sometimes I don't even finish certain things. But when it comes to projects that I genuinely like, I keep doing them. So what I have right now, and they're all linked in my main account, which is Ginoong Cervantes. That's my main account. I have an art account, which I'm very proud of. It's called Cerebral Epitaph.
Yeah.
Epitaph. And that's where I post my honest and very human kinds of experiences and stories. And I also have a poetry account, which is Sancta Somero. And that's where I post my poems. And most of them are... I hope helpful. I hope also really helpful for people.
And you do haikus in that account too, right? You do haikus, yeah.
And I also have my third account, and this one I'm very proud of. And I realized my first 2 accounts have really weird names. So the third account is really straightforward. It's occult psychology. I'm talking about things that are magical and mysterious, but grounding them with psychological theories and concepts, and that's something that I'm very interested in as well.
Wow. Well, you've got a busy project. You've got a busy life ahead. You have a lot of projects to do. So I'm excited to see more of your content, especially in your Cerebral Epitaph. Guys, he's got amazing artworks and stories there that you could listen. And it's really quick. What I would like to say about it, it's a swift sword. The words are a few, but it just gets you right there. Like, okay, wait, that hits a little close to home, but that's really nice. Okay, thanks, Carl, again for joining me on an episode like this. So to all my listeners out there, hey, lovies, thank you guys for reaching this end of or this part of our episode. Stay tuned for more episodes next week. We're going to talk about cancel culture with Ryan Desplasios. We're going to talk about all those. And yeah, I'll see you then. Bye, lovies.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to know more, check out www.guerrillapodcast.com.au or guerrillapodcast.com.ph.
A Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate production.